welcome, folks. Super excited to talk you through all of the awesome work we've had going on. Lots of events to cover as well. So we will get right into it. Once again, my name is Maggie. I'm the Community Product Manager for DataHub. And if we haven't interacted in Slack yet, I'd love to hear from you and to learn all about what brings you to the DataHub community. Okay, so let's dig into it. We have, once again, a packed agenda. So we're going to be doing just our normal community updates, project updates. We'll hear from Justin from G Research to learn about how they're using Cassandra as their backend. We're also going to be showing a new demo of our new glossary term workflow within the UI-based user onboarding. We'll talk about some advanced use cases within DataHub, and then a sneak peek for data reliability. The other thing is that we have our hackathon announcements to go through as well. So let's take a look at how things are going in the community. We have just surpassed 3,300 members. This is the biggest jump in membership that we've seen month over month in all time ever. So we're still trending around that 9% month over month growth, but awesome to see that we welcomed nearly 300 people in the last month. It's mind boggling. I can't believe it. It makes me so happy. We also have 959 weekly active users. This is also a big increase over the past period. We did see a dip in the total number of messages sent, but 10,000 messages is still a ton of messages to be shooting around. So nothing to sneeze at there. And then 718 emoji reactions. You guys know me, I'm all about those teamwork emoji reactions, so keep those coming. We looked at this for the first time last month to start to get a sense of kind of the types of conversations that are coming in and kind of like the trends of activity. So what we saw in this month is that, so we're looking at just like the volume of GitHub issues opened and pull requests opened. We did see a dip here in the last 4 weeks compared to the 4 weeks prior, but we're still seeing around 21 PRs open per week. And for those of you who are, I'm sure you can imagine that those are all PRs that are going to be reviewed and moved through by the core DataHub team. And we love to, we give those a ton of attention and want to make sure that they're super high quality. So it's definitely, 20 PRs a week again is just, it's a lot. We got a lot of really awesome contributors coming through. But what that means is that it also can sometimes pull us away from providing outstanding support in Slack. And so this is just another shout out that if you're able to help out with your fellow community members, help address questions, help folks get unblocked, help them resolve, kind of common pain points that maybe you're familiar with. We are still seeing about 500 or so support questions come in per week. And those are across all of our support channels from UI, ingestion, troubleshooting, et cetera. So just a snapshot here and a humble cry or humble plea for support from the community. If you're able to help, we would much appreciate it. All right, let's talk community shout outs. We always love to celebrate teams that are driving adoption of DataHub within their organization. So today we're excited to call out the team from Showroom Privé, which is a French company. If you attended Metadata Day, the lightning talks, we had Corentin give us a talk, and then Damien and Omar have been helping out on his team as well. So much love to that team. If your team has officially adopted DataHub, we'd love to give you guys a shout out. By providing this level of visibility, it actually is a huge kind of like driver of growth within our community as well. So if your company has adopted DataHub, please reach out, let me know. We'd love to get you guys some much love there. The other thing, yesterday I asked the community to DM me if there was anybody that had gone above and beyond. I received only one DM from Kirthi, and it was to give me and Tamás a shout out. So I promise this wasn't a cry for compliments for me. I do want to make sure that we're celebrating folks who are helping one another out, but let's keep this up. We'll try it again next month in Town Hall. And I would just love to hear if there are particularly folks in the community that have gone above and beyond to support you. But also Kirthi, thanks for giving me and Tamás that shout out. All right, hackathon time. So we had our first our inaugural hackathon for Metadata Day last week, and our theme was around hackathons related to governance as code. And I'm excited to announce for our top hack. So this is going to be a $3,000 US cash prize, and this is going out to, drumroll please, Niels Hoffman for his SHACL shenanigans hack. So Niels, I don't know if you're on the call. I'm having a hard time looking through all of the.
I think Josh will have a heart attack. That's shackle, I think.
It's shackle. I'm so sorry.
But that's what the semantic.
Josh, please don't have a heart attack. All right. So actually, Shirshanka, I wonder if I can put you on the spot a little bit and talk through like what stood out to you with this hack.
Well, the thing that we liked the most was kind of taking the idea of business glossaries, and everyone knows that we've kind of come up with a YAML format for it. But there are a ton of business glossaries or ontologies out there already. And what Niels built was essentially a way to create a notebook that just shows you how to map terms from a shackle ontology into our business glossary format. So it's pretty cool. It allows you to bring in external glossaries into DataHub so that you're not having to reinvent the world inside DataHub every single time. Very much on point, really, I think, met and exceeded kind of the theme of governance as code. So really love to see even more contributions like this beyond Hack Days, but very excited
Awesome.
for what this goes. And I think Josh has been, we were speaking behind the scenes at Metadata Day, and this kind of stuff is, I think, interesting for all business metadata interested folks. So, but that's not all, is it? There's more, right? So this was
more. Yes,
but there's more coming.
Sorry, I was coughing and on mute. I apologize. All right, so again, congrats to Niels for our top hack. But now we actually turn this back to the community. So we're going to solicit votes from this group right here. So we have 3 hacks, one from each of our categories or our themes. So one is around auto annotating DataHub entities by learning user annotation. So actually leveraging an ML process to kind of auto apply those annotations. We also have single click data exploration within DataHub. So this is actually kind of helping visualize data just with one click. And then glossary as code within schemas. So taking schema annotations and pushing those into, or making sure that they're matching glossary terms, and actually prohibiting checking in code that is lacking a glossary term. So we are going to close the voting in 50 minutes. So we're going to ask you guys to do a little bit of multitasking during the session, but head over to vote.datahubproject.io. You'll see the videos of those hack walkthroughs, as well as more details on there. You can also see the link out to the code. Pam, I know that you asked around details about the shackle shenanigans. I got it right this time. And we will, I should have posted that in here, but we'll send a link out to the code and that video as well. So like I said, we're going to do some live voting. This will close in 50 minutes. The winning group here will get $2,000 US as a cash prize, and super excited to see what y'all think with that one.
Just a quick, if you can go back, Maggie, one. So the middle one, it's a little hard to understand exactly what it is from the title. What it allows you to do is, so the one that's called single click data exploration in DataHub, what it allows you to do is go from DataHub to a superset page where the connection to the data source gets auto-created for you, so that when you're in superset, you are now able to explore the data automatically without having had to configure superset in the first place. So that's kind of what that hack does. And I think Maggie covered the first and the third one pretty well, so I don't need to voice over anymore.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that extra context. And Elizabeth just reminded me that we're going to be sending out a survey around Metadata Day. We'll also be sending out links out to the hackathon winners and source code, so you can take a deeper look into that. All right. Now we move on to project updates.
Well, just a quick update on the community before we get into project updates. You probably know that Metadata happened last week, Metadata Day. And we also had an experts panel within it that kind of spent a bunch of time talking about governance as code. We spent a lot of time the day prior workshopping and producing this deck, and then finally had a panel discussion. So would highly recommend checking it out, not just because I am there, but because there's a lot of really cool people up there who have a lot of life experiences creating and running governance initiatives and seeing how things work and when they don't. So I thought it was very useful. In fact, I went back and heard it and I learned something that I had not realized even during the panel. So I thought it was a good one. Go take a look at it or watch it. It's a long one, but hopefully it's enjoyable. But moving on, there was something interesting that emerged. So something interesting that emerged from that conversation was kind of an emerging architecture for how we should be thinking about governance as code, and what does a reference architecture for that look like, and what is the role of metadata or a metadata platform in enabling that. And what is interesting is it kind of really seems to play to DataHub's strengths in terms of its architecture and its capabilities. So on the left, you've got all your data sources, all your data systems really, and they're all producing metadata continuously, right? This is technical metadata as well as operational metadata. And we need a place to put all of that metadata in a large and complex and comprehensive graph. But then on top of that, we need business context like KPIs, glossaries, ownership, purpose, privacy stuff, all of that lives on top of this technical and operational metadata graph, but actually has links into it and back out between these two elements. And once you have both the technical layer and the business layer beautifully mapped and represented, you can then start expressing higher level policies, higher level definitions of good, as we said, against this combo graph, right? So you can start saying things like data sets that have more than these many owners and have had fragility in landing times, like they don't actually land very reliably, are actually data sets I need to pay attention to if they're owned by this team or if they're powering an important critical dashboard. So you can see how definition of good can span business entities or business context, as well as a technical or operational context. And you can now write these tests against the graph, and you'll hear about what we're doing in DataHub to enable these kind of things very soon. And you can now, with the actions framework and our ability to continuously evaluate change as it is happening, create downstream implications. You can go ahead and break a circuit, meaning stop a pipeline from running and producing bad data. You can start setting up retention policies in your data warehouse. You can start locking down access. The options are unlimited for what you can do if you can continuously evaluate that policies as tests and then take action on the results of these tests. So we're really excited about what this means for the future of DataHub, and you'll start seeing these kind of features start showing up in the product, and we're actually going to be talking about a few of them today. So that's my plug on what happened at Metadata Day and kind of the emerging reference architecture for the control plane, as we're calling it.
And just a reminder that we do have recordings on the DataHub channel. So we have recordings both from the panel talk and then also lightning talks.
Cool. All right, so now let's get into project updates. There were 2 releases that happened since the last town hall, and there's a third one that's coming up. Lots and lots of PRs. We're back up at the 200 plus mark in terms of PRs merged, catching up on a ton of backlog, honestly. There's still a few, and there's an important RFC that I'm personally looking at, the access permissions RFC. We also have a lot of new contributors, so really excited to see all of this. As you can see, Maggie has already highlighted the new ones and the repeat offenders. It's great to see everyone continuing to push this project forward. In terms of metadata integrations, we've got a new incubating Pulsar source, updates to the Feast connector to support kind of the newer versions of Feast. The previous Feast connector was only connecting to kind of the old style Feast API. We still have support for both of them. Improvements to Snowflake external, lots of improvements. You can read through it. Snowflake, BigQuery, Tableau. I'm excited about the dev experience and platform track because DataHub Actions Framework is now live. So you can actually take action on your metadata and do interesting things with it. Just like the picture said, we have released the Open API endpoint. So now you actually have a Swagger UI you can hit for posts, for gets and deletes. So you can have a much easier way to interact with your metadata graph. And something that I'm very happy about is we now have code-generated metadata ingestion source docs. So, eating our own dog food with respect to shifting left, we've moved all of the documentation into the source code, along with annotations for the support quality of an ingestion source and things like that. And you'll see it in how our ingestion source docs are now looking much more standardized and there's more freshness to them in the sense that when someone goes in and fixes up a source for a certain capability, we attach that capability to the source right there, and then the docs get automatically upgraded. Aditya demoed the blame view a couple of times already, so it's now in the product. So you can go to your dataset schema page and you can see how it's changed over time. It's the Git blame-like view. There's a more comprehensive diff view and a timeline view that's coming up later. And that's not all. We just merged in the Iceberg connector. Really excited about this. Last time we announced the Hoodie connector. Now we have Iceberg. It's, as you can see, in testing status. So please try it out. Huge shout out to Eric L. And Surya for actually collaborating and making sure that this PR succeeded. It was a lot of work. A lot of different things had to get done. I'm very excited that it's actually pulling dataset statistics directly from the Iceberg metadata, which is very cool because you don't have to profile data twice if you can avoid it. Iceberg has detailed statistics for datasets, and so this connector just pulls those out and reflects them on DataHub. I'm also excited for what this means for upcoming maybe Delta Lake capabilities. All right. Another sneak feature that's there, and you may not know it, is deprecating data sets. So you can actually go to that hamburger over to the right of a data set and then mark it as deprecated. So I just today morning, I went to Asim's temp DB that he very helpfully named do not use, but I still went ahead and deprecated it and made sure that no one else was depending on this for anything critical. So you can mark it as deprecated, give it a decommission date, put a note, and then it shows up with a nice red pill. All right. And
hey, Shirshanka, Asim also posted in chat a reminder around SAP HANA and Vertica. You want to talk about those briefly?
I think those are being merged in, but I don't know. Did they get merged in already?
Yeah, that's what Asim is saying.
Oh, cool. So then we have two more incubating sources, SAP HANA and Vertica. And so please, both are in, all three of these are in kind of testing status, as we call it. So it's available for you to test and give us your feedback and we'll improve it. But that's not all. I went through the PR list and there's a ton of additional stuff that has gone in even since that last release. So we have an Airflow lineage ingestion plugin that you can just drop into your Airflow instance and it starts emitting Airflow metadata. There's a regression that we had with Airflow 1 support that we fixed. We've got a much improved S3 connector that actually speeds up ingestion a lot and also does sampling of source files. So that's going to really help you if you're already using the S3 source. We should be creating a CLI PyPy release later today, so you look out for that. Contribution from Boyan around enabling DBT to read artifacts from S3. A lot of people store their artifacts in S3, so this is very good. You don't have to copy it over into your local file system anymore. Mugdha improved the Spark lineage emitter to support for add support for the persist API. Previously, we were only supporting cases where you're actually non-cached kind of cases, and this one adds support for those kind of ASTs as well. You might have noticed John merged in a metadata tests PR. That's a huge one, and you'll see what that enables very soon. And there's more. There's a revocable token API that Pedro added. It allows you to not only, in DataHub, you can create personal access tokens and give them out to your team members, but now we allow you to even revoke them because, people leave the company and you want to rotate secrets and things like that. Justin added, this is only for the hardcore folks, refactoring internals of our entity service. Now we have a storage independent in-memory entity aspect model. Very excited about it for the number of different backends it will now allow us to implement. You'll hear from Justin soon. BigQuery, rate limiting for API calls, a very nice PR. Chris added fixed a lot of UI usability issues in one PR. So you'll see the product looking much better very soon as a result of that. And then there's also a very interesting PR that John added to make the authorization interface pluggable. And that means it'll allow us to add in external authorizers for DataHub very soon. Those are all the big things that have happened in addition to just the releases that went up. Over to you, Maggie.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to turn it over to Justin from G Research. He's going to talk us through how they are using Cassandra as their backend.
Hello,
Hey, Justin.
I'm Justin. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Good. So I'm Justin, and as Maggie said, I'm here to quickly go through how G Research is using DataHub with Cassandra backend, why we did it, and how is it going for us. Can I get a nice? Okay, so first of all, the quick intro. We are Europe's leading quantitative finance firm, and we are spending our days making a crystal ball that predicts movements in the financial markets. And I'm coming from a data engineering, one of the data engineering teams in the company. Next slide, please. Yes, so DataHub showed up in our radars when we were shopping for a metadata store for the next generation of our data platform, and we liked it for its flexibility and scalable components that it provides, and for enterprise use cases of that we had. DataHub was just a natural fit. It's search and discovery, mainly used by humans, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of entities. There were no problems with DataHub here. But then when we started looking into fine-grained requirements where the calc farm comes into the picture, where thousands of job workers would be querying DataHub for operational level data set inventory and updating that with whatever they were doing with it. And there's just, it would just have to support the billions of data sets as a system of records. And it just didn't look feasible that the relational database would be able to handle it. So we decided to look for a more scalable backend. Next slide, please. And we liked Cassandra because together with elastic scalability, it also gives us high availability, multi-data center support with configurable levels of consistency, And we already knew it, and we had people who understand it. And okay, so we already did some performance testing internally, and well, we wanted to prove that things do actually scale, and performance looked good. And we are ironing out some kinks in an integration with one of our internal services, where one of the services that would require scalable backend, and so far it's looking good. More teams come to us asking about DataHub. We are doing more projects with it, and yeah, that's really cool. Next slide, please. And it is available for the community. We contributed Cassandra support back. It's the docs are still in progress. We should be creating a pull request for that fairly soon. Yeah. That being said, it's like more of an incubator stage at the moment. It's still fairly early days, so there are some nuances there, and probably some might remain. For example, paging and sorting was unexpectedly annoying because of how Cassandra, because of Cassandra limitations. So if you will be comparing it like one next to each other with a relational, with a DataHub with a relational backend, ordering in the return results wouldn't be exactly the same, but Cassandra is internally consistent, so it's fine. Differences in transaction mechanism between relational and Cassandra could cause some performance problems, where first we want to prove the capability, and we'll do more performance tuning once we get to that. So we're keeping an eye on that. Yeah, and that's kind of it. If you have questions, please do ask.
Thanks so much, Justin. All right, moving on over to our business glossary updates. Chris, I believe you're going to share your screen, yes?
Yeah, I think that'll just be a little bit easier.
All righty.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, also, I should say, Chris is the newest member of the Acryl data team. We've really loved working with him so far and excited to show off his hard work out so quickly after joining.
Thank you, Maggie. Cool. Well, hey, everyone. Like Maggie said, I'm Chris. Today, I'm going to talk about some business glossary updates. So for a while now, we've been hearing feedback from a lot of different people that they want a more robust business glossary on DataHub, as many of you may know. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the business glossary on DataHub has been like. But most importantly, I'm going to show you all where it's going. So until now, the only way to get glossary terms into DataHub was via YAML-based ingestion, not necessarily the most convenient thing for most users, as you can imagine. Then once you actually got terms into DataHub, there was no easy way to find what you were looking for, or even just see the structure of your glossary. Navigating terms and term groups, some of you may know these as glossary nodes, and the UI was honestly just not a good time. Then on top of that, there was no way to edit these terms or groups, delete them, move them, you name it, couldn't really do much. What you had is what you were just kind of stuck with. But today, I'm here to tell you that all that is about to change. All right, I'm just gonna hop straight into demo time and show you guys some new things that we have going. Okay, cool. So here you can see we have a new button that takes you to a home glossary page. Here you can finally see the structure of your glossary, and this is where you're going to be able to navigate with much greater ease. You can see here all the root level terms and term groups. Specifically, we just have term groups listed. You can see the number of direct child entities or terms or term groups directly below this and right next to it. Right here on the left, we have a nifty glossary browser on the side of the page. Here you can move around and click, check out the different structure of your glossary. You can check out all the nested stuff. And then let's go into one of these guys and check out one of these terms. All right, so This is our new updated glossary term page. You can see that on the left, we now have this, this browser. So you can always see where you're at in the business glossary, which is pretty nice. You can also see on the top, we have an updated path crumb bar that'll show you all the different parents that'll lead you to where you want to go. This is going to be on both glossary terms and these glossary nodes, aka term groups. Which, yeah, so that's pretty nice. Okay, and then also here on top of the glossary browser, you have a little search bar so you can look for different terms or term groups. So let's say I know that there's a term group called sales, but I'm not really sure where it is. Oop, I can just type in sales and then I can go straight to it. And cool. And then you can also see that when you go to a new term or term group page, this glossary browser is going to auto open its parents in order to show you where you're at. So you're always aware of where you are within the business glossary. And then this is also a brand new page. Before, we did not necessarily have an entity page for term groups, aka glossary nodes, which is pretty convenient. Here you can add documentation, you can add owners, you can look at all the contents, you can see all the different children here. And yeah. All right, but that's not it. Not only can you navigate through your business glossary much easier, you can actually add to it. So let's add a new term right here through the UI. I'm going to be really inventive and just call it new term. So you can see here that it auto populates the parent, which is going to be the term group to be wherever you're at in the UI. So we're in sales right now. So it's going to auto populate to sales. However, I can click into this and a new little reuse of this component over here where we can check out different groups so we can select from here if we actually want to put it somewhere else. But here, I'm just going to keep it in sales. Let's create it. It's going to take a second to update. And boom, here we go. We have a new term. Let's go to the new term page. Okay, so once we are here, not only can we create these terms, but we can actually edit them. So I have this new term. I don't really like this name, but I'm going to add edited just to show you guys that I can. Awesome. So now we have edited. You can see it updated up here in the path and also over here in the glossary browser. But not only can you create terms and then you're not just stuck with them, you can also delete terms. So I'm going to go here, click delete. It's going to give you a little modal just to make sure you want to confirm that you do want to delete it. And then I'm going to say yes, because I don't really care about this term. All right, that glossary term is deleted. It was underneath sales. If I open up sales, you can see it is no longer there. Pretty nice. All right, cool. So I'm going to check out a different term page. So I've shown you guys that you can now create terms, edit their names. You can also create term groups / nodes. You can edit their names as well. But let's say also, I just want to add one quick caveat about deleting. So right now in the first version, you can only delete terms or nodes that do not have children. Well, terms can't have children, but term groups can. So if you see this guy, KPIs, has a bunch of children, this is going to be grayed out right now, and it's going to let you know that you can't delete it with child entities. That being said, we are planning on a round of follow-ups, and in that is going to be a cascade delete feature where if I want to delete this term group, it will delete all of its children along with it. But for the time being, a simple thing that you can do is just go in and delete each of these children, and then you'll be able to delete the term group itself. But cool. So we've been able to create stuff, we've been able to edit stuff, we've been able to delete stuff. But also, let's say we have a term and we put it in the wrong term group and we realize, ah, shoot, I actually want to move this guy somewhere. So let's go to this term, EBITDA. And I don't know about you, but this might make more sense in a different term group. So let's move it. And then when we click in here, not only do we have this nice little glossary browser when we create to select parents, but we can also navigate through everything when we're in, when we're trying to move stuff. So this EBITDA, I'm not an accounting guy, but I feel like this is an accounting term. So I'm just going to select accounting and I move this bad boy. And boom, there we go. You can now see EBITDA is no longer in KPIs. It is now in accounting. The path crumb shows everything updated. We were successfully able to move this thing. All right. So last but not least, I want to show you guys one more feature specifically that will hopefully make your guys' lives a lot easier. I'm going to go to a data set. Let's just go to the sample Hive data set. And we've been able to add terms before, but if you guys remember, before you had to just search for the term name. So it was a little inconvenient if one, you didn't know what the term name was, or two, if you had two term names that had like two terms with the same name, but in different term groups, they maybe had slightly different contexts. You could no longer, like you just couldn't differentiate between them. But now when you are adding a glossary term to a entity, you can click in and yep, you got it. We can now reuse the same guy and we can add any term that we want. So I'm just gonna scroll down and add one of these, why not? Whoops, I accidentally clicked out, that was my bad. So I'll just click that one, add customer account to it. And then here we go. I don't even want to remove it. And then, all right. So one final thing I'd like to mention as well is that all of these changes are backwards compatible. So for any existing glossaries that are out there, all of this will work just fine for you. You'll be able to just navigate through it much better and add things to it also much easier. So now I'm going to go back to this. And the last thing I'll say is that you may be asking yourself, Chris, when does this be available? And I'm here to tell you that this is actually going to be available with our next release this week. So get ready, everyone. It's coming. And I think that's it for me.
Amazing. Lots of love in the chat. John's been jumping in and answering some questions. But Chris, I encourage you to take a look at the questions in there, see if there's any sort of stragglers there. I gotta say, man, you're coming in with a bang. This is a great and long and awaited and highly requested feature from the community, and one of our roadmap items that we can now tick. Well, we'll release it first, but then we'll say tick, it's complete. Well done. All right, let's move along. We are going to have Aditya share some news around user onboarding. And Aditya, you there?
Oh, my bad. Sorry, I was on mute. Hey, everyone.
Got
Good
it.
to be with you this Thursday morning. So let's talk about this new user onboarding flow that we're adding. So why are we building this feature? You know, it's one of our top requested features. It's on our roadmap, similar to the UI business glossary. You know, SSO is great, but it can take time and effort and coordination between, like, you know, your IT team, your security team, and your data scientists to like get that all set up. We want like a fast, easy way for you to onboard new users to DataHub. You know, like what if it was as simple as just, you know, sharing this nice invite link? So let me walk you through this demo. Give me 1 second. Oh, it says I cannot start screen share while other participant is sharing. Cool, we are good. Give me 1 second. Sweet, so let me make sure I'm logging in as the admin user so that I have the right privileges and everything. Sweet. So if I go to this users and groups tab, you'll see that there's this new invite users button that pops up. Note that this is only going to be clickable if you're an admin user. So I click over here. I see that there's this nice little invite link. I can go ahead and copy it. I can also generate a new link if I want and you know, kill any old links that we have. Let me log out. Cool. And let's paste this link. Sweet. Let's see, what should we say our name is? You know what? I'm going to use one of my teammates, John. And that's it. That's all you have to do to like sign up a new user. It's super easy and simple. But you know, like what if you forget your password? We want an easy way for you to be able to reset that. So you can just talk to your admin actually and go ahead and have them send you a new reset link so that you're able to reset your password. So one of my other teammates, Surya, let's say that he's forgotten his password. I want to generate a password reset link for him that's unique to him. This is not going to be usable for anybody else. Let me log out, make sure I have his username and everything correct. So just redirected to a similar screen as before. Let's set a new password. Boom, your credentials have been reset. You're able to get back into your account, no problem. Super simple experience. Cool. Let me stop sharing my screen and see if we can go back to the other one. Oh, there it is. My bad. Cool. Maggie, can you go back to the slides? Right. Forgot I added this. Sweet. So when is this going to be available? Probably not within this release, but within the next, the release after that. So hopefully very soon, you know, we want you to be able to onboard users quickly in DataHub. And if you have any questions about technical implementation, like please feel free to reach out to me on Slack, and I'm happy to talk about it. Cool.
Amazing. Thank you, sir. Also a long-awaited and highly requested feature. So love seeing that progress. All right, one reminder, I'm watching the votes come in. We have 42 votes for community favorite hack so far. So about half of you have voted. It also means about half of you have not voted. So please remember to go to vote.datahubproject.io and vote for your favorite community hack. And we'll move right along to round of DataHub 201. So if y'all have been joining town halls for a while, every once in a while we'll have DataHub 101 where we kind of do a deep dive into a specific feature. This time around, we're going to do some advanced functionality and advanced use cases within DataHub. And today we're going to talk about impact analysis. So for the sake of this, we are going to talk about, briefly talk about a fictional company called Longtail Companions, where every pet is exceptional. And in Longtail, they have a highly fragmented data stack. So within their adoptions team, oh, I should say that Longtail Companions is an adoptions agency and pet supply store. And so within their organization, they have an adoptions team. That team is using Postgres and MongoDB for their, for their application storage. There's an e-commerce and data science team. They're also using Postgres, but instead of MongoDB, they're leveraging Kafka to manage their clickstream analytics. Then they realize that their data needs become a little bit too complex, so they hire a data platform team who can start to sync all of that data from all of those source systems via Airflow jobs into S3, then leverage Spark to transform and process that data and land it into a central warehouse in Snowflake. And then last but not least, there's an analytics engineering team to actually make use of this data. So they're accessing Snowflake to transform their data using dbt, validate it using great expectations, and then ultimately surface it in Looker. So hopefully this is a kind of familiar landscape for you all. And really it's just to demonstrate that within a modern data stack, there are a lot of touch points across a lot of areas. And one thing that can be really difficult to answer is if I'm going to make a change in a production application schema, what does that impact downstream? So maybe someone on the adoptions team is saying, they want to make a change to the pet profile data set, but what's going to change? Like, what's going to be impacted by that? So with DataHub, we have this idea of impact analysis. So this is just a quick screenshot of it. We'll go into a demo in a second, but ultimately choose your data set or your entity that you want to augment or kind of proactively understand what will happen if you make changes to it. And then we can go into the impact analysis workflow. So if we go into Longtail's DataHub platform, and let's pretend that I am on this adoptions team, I want to make a change to the pet profile data set in MongoDB, and I just want to know what dashboards are going to break from that. So if I go in here and just search for pet profile, this will go into our centralized search experience. We love a good demo, live demo. This is great. All right. We love a good live demo, folks. Let's go about it a different way. So if we go into MongoDB and look at our pet profiles data set, for those of you who have been using DataHub for a while, you're probably familiar just with the idea of looking at lineage. And so if I'm an engineer on this team and I see that there's if I want to understand the impact, just looking at the first step of lineage, all I see is one Airflow task. So, I mean, that's not like, in my mind, it could be like, whoa, that's not a big deal at all. But if we go into impact analysis, we can actually start to see that downstream of all of that are 65 charts, 17 dashboards, 10 data sets, 2 tasks across all of these different platforms. So we're specifically interested in looking at dashboards that are going to be impacted. So if I filter down to dashboards, I can now see that there are these 17 Looker dashboards, all within this 10th degree of connection. So it's 10 steps down that change of transformations. And I now have a cohesive set of entities that I know might be impacted. So if I want to get in touch with the owners of this, I can quickly download a summary of these, open this up in good old Excel, which is on my other screen. Here we go. And what you'll see is both the earn for the entity. I realize this is a little bit small. Let me blow this up for you. You can see the name of it. It's a dashboard, but then I also have information about the owners the owners of those resources. So I now have a concrete list of people to contact, and I can be proactive in my communication and ask them or start to collaborate with them to make sure that any of the changes that I push aren't going to have an adverse reaction there. So along with this, we also have information around, the tags, the terms, and then also explicit links out to those entities. So you can literally just hand this off to someone and then they can go do the research on their side, or it just makes it so much easier to collaborate. So yeah, so that's it for impact analysis. This is one that I know personally, if I had access to this for the first 7 years of my career in data, I probably would have saved 6 years of researching what was going on. So this is definitely something that I am a massive fan of. John, let's move it over to you, bud.
Hey, before we continue, Maggie, do we have enough time, or should we go over? Should we try to truncate down?
I will defer to you. What do you think?
Okay, I'll try to condense it into a lightning talk, but it may spill
Okay.
over a little bit, if that's all right.
Okay.
So folks, feel free to drop off, of course, at 9, but we may go a few minutes over. All right, so hopefully everyone can see my screen. We're going to be actually giving like a condensed lightning talk based on a talk we gave on Monday at Airflow Summit. It was about building data pipelines for data reliability in mind with a set of tools: DataHub, Great Expectations, and Airflow. All right, let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what this concept of data reliability even means and kind of why you should care. So we looked to 2 definitions when we were thinking about what data reliability means. The first is reliable, which means consistently good in quality or performance, able to be trusted, and reliability, which really means the overall consistency of a measure. And when you think about this applied to data, we think a good way to think about it is really that data reliability is the overall consistency of data quality. Okay, well, that raises a new question. What is data quality? Well, data quality can be thought of as kind of a set of living dimensions. Availability, which just means that data is available for access. Timeliness, which is really about how soon after something happens does the data actually reflect that it happened. So data is typically modeling some events. How long after those events is that updated data ready to use? And then correctness, which is really about, does the data accurately represent what it's supposed to be representing? And then data reliability, which can be thought of again as sort of the consistency of data quality over time. So what we're looking at here is something that would be maybe less reliable, where the quality is sort of varying dramatically over time. And this would be something more reliable, where the quality is sort of stable and high over time. So 2 characteristics there, both the consistency and the fact that the quality is remaining high. All right, so thinking about this, how do we realize data reliability? Well, we try to build availability, timeliness, completeness, and correctness into all of our data, but we have to do this across time. So as our ecosystem changes and as our data changes, which as we all know, this is a really tough challenge by itself. And then finally at scale. So we have to do this with maybe thousands of data sets or hundreds of DAGs or even more. And so this is a real challenge. Why should we care about data reliability in the first place? Great question. I think really the strongest reason is that data is becoming a product. And what I mean by that, in practical terms, is that data is now on the kind of value creation chain for many businesses in a very direct way, serving both human and machine consumers. So for example, human consumers, both inside a company or outside of a company as part of a product, and then machine consumers, which again can be internal consumers, or now what we're seeing is companies sharing data and actually building data dependencies across one another, very similar to how many companies have built online dependencies across each other's services. And what that means is that these attributes, availability, timeliness, and correctness, are just going to continue to grow in importance over time. And as a data platform team, there's various challenges we have to face in data reliability. The first is, we've kind of touched on it, scale. Collecting data has never been easier. More people have never been interfacing with digital products than today. The scale of the data we are collecting is just bigger than ever, and it's still growing at quite a clip. And complexity, which is related, right? So as the scale has grown, many organizations have moved towards data democratization, which really means putting this, this volume of data in the hands of their company members to derive insights. And what that's led to is really kind of an explosion of different tools that are very mission built or purpose built for one specific use case on that data value creation capture plane. And these both are changing quickly as well. I think an emergent challenge we face as data platform teams, data engineers, is really like separating the signal from the noise. As we deal with this scale and complexity, as engineers, our typical response is to try to build automation and deal with it using technical solutions. But oftentimes what I've seen and what I've experienced is that, this part about filtering is actually one of the hardest pieces. You come in Monday morning and you've got all types of DAGs breaking, and it's really difficult sometimes to understand where to even start given the scale and the volume. All right, now that we kind of understand data reliability as a concept, we're going to talk about building pipelines for data reliability. And we're going to start by looking at kind of some patterns that we've seen in the wild for how people are doing this today. And then we're going to propose a new pattern, which involves obviously DataHub. So let's imagine we have a simple Airflow pipeline which produces some output table. We're going to call it table. And it's a pretty standard setup where you have an upstream table that's actually being consumed by multiple downstream consumers. And these downstream consumers, they're owned by different stakeholders. So for example, we have one that produces a derived table. We have another which maybe produces a table that serves as input to a looker chart. And then we have another which maybe generates some emails based on that table. And one key characteristic here is that the producer of the upstream table is independent of the consumers. So there's decoupling between the two. And really, this is the only way that we've seen to achieve scale in data democratization. And the first pattern we've seen, which kind of naturally emerges from this type of architecture for reliability, is what we call consumer side validation. And what this really is that each of the consumers will basically run some validations or some pre-flight checks on that input table that they're depending on before they run. So for example, this first one may check that input table just exists. And maybe the second one does something a little bit more that says, hey, if the row count in a certain range or a certain timestamp is greater than 0, then maybe I can continue. And maybe the third one just doesn't do any validation at all. It just assumes that upstream table is good to go and then runs. This is what we call contract on read. And what I mean by that is that the contract of the data, not just its structure or the columns and that kind of thing, but the actual kind of row profile as well. So the whole semantic contract of the table is verified by the consumers when they read the data. And there's some different downsides to this approach that we've seen. One is that it's just ad hoc and inconsistent. So, some consumers may only depend on a handful of columns from the table. So maybe they only check that those columns are looking good. Maybe others don't even do any validations at all. There's kind of this partial validation of the contract. And then of course, there's just wastefulness. It's duplicative because you can have multiple downstream consumers that are doing the same processing over and over on this table. The second approach, which I think is a little better, puts a validation of that table in the hand of the producer of the data. And so in this case, what we have is the owner of this transform actually writing some validations against the table and then running them periodically. So for example, you can use tools like Great Expectations or DQ or DBT tests to do things like verify that columns are distinct, not null in a range, basically verify this semantic contract. And then probably do some alerting if they start failing. And this is another very common pattern we've seen. This is what we call contract after write. So once that table has been written, we run some periodic validations on it. And if something is wrong, we send an alert to the owner. Now, there's another downside with this approach. The key downside is that bad data can propagate to all of those downstream consumers by default. There's no way for the consumers to understand that those validations upstream have passed or not. It's kind of up to the diligence of the owner to make sure that they're communicating that. And so we started thinking like, hey, is there anything we can do better in this type of architecture, just because it's so common across organizations today, particularly those using tools like Airflow. And we started thinking, well, one way would be maybe to push the validation into the right path and actually run validations when the table is generated, let's say on a daily basis. This is what we call contract on write, because when the table is written, we're verifying certain attributes of the table, establishing that it's trusted. And there are upsides to this type of pattern. There's consistency, there's better coverage of the contract because the owner has all of the context of what the table should look like, theoretically being closer to the source. And then finally, it's like a centralized play. We don't have to have the consumers verifying things. But in this approach, there's a few patterns you can use. One is you could fail the upstream DAG if the validations don't pass. Maybe this is running as the final operator in the DAG. Or you could, that's pretty much the main one. But there's not really any way to communicate that status of the upstream DAG to the downstream consumers. And this is what we call the communication problem. It's really, how do the downstream consumers really know whether the upstream validations passed or failed for a given day? There's not really a clear way to communicate. And so what we're proposing is introducing a metadata platform in between these two decoupled producer and consumers. And what we call this is metadata-driven orchestration. And here's how it works. Basically, as a producer DAG, you kind of add a final step after you've produced a table and run validations, which is called the reporting step. So what you do during the reporting step is you push a signal to DataHub, which basically says, I have produced this downstream table and it has passed or failed its validations. And then what you can do on the other side is add a very thin pre-flight check, which simply checks that the upstream data that it's serving as inputs have indeed passed and are up to date based on the consumer's expectations. So for example, this producer may say, hey, I inserted 45 rows into the table and the table passed its entire validation suite. And then the pre-flight check would ask the same question. Is the input data up to date? Meaning, has it been updated in the last 12 hours? And is it passing its validations or is it failing? All right, and then basically there's kind of two outcomes that we can take. If the checks pass, we can run the pipeline. If they fail, we can circuit break, just to make sure that the bad data is not propagating downstream and we don't have a huge mess to clean up. Obviously, this is a very simple case, but there are cases where there are many, maybe hundreds of downstream looker charts or dashboards dependent on an upstream table. And you can imagine the difficulty and the complexity associated with kind of going up that entire dependency chain and backfilling stuff when bad data makes it all the way down. All right, so a practical example of this, and we're gonna actually continue with what Maggie introduced earlier, this idea of long tail companions, which is a company that, pet adoption company. And we're going to have a very basic pipeline as an example. We have a set of pet profiles, which is updated from some online store. Periodically, it's ETL'd into S3. Then we have a Snowflake loader, which is going to load this into a Snowflake table. And then finally, we have an email sender job, which is going to send emails to prospective buyers or adopters. And this pipeline is working out pretty well so far. But one day, there's a problem. And that problem is that the pet profiles data is delayed because the ETL job that copies it from online didn't work today. And so what happens? Well, what happens is that the Snowflake table is also delayed. So it's not updated for the day. And our email sender job doesn't know about this, of course, and it still runs. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that we're pushing bad recommendations to prospective adopters. So maybe for pets that have already been adopted. And that's pretty bad because we don't want to pull on their heartstrings or like make our customer support team upset by all of this. So we really want to prevent this type of thing. So we start to think, okay, how can we prevent a situation like this in the future? And this is where the first abstraction provided by DataHub comes into play, which is we're calling DataHub operations. And the first step of using DataHub operations is to report when something happens in an upstream DAG. So for example, in that Snowflake loader DAG, we could add a final piece of code that would push that they had inserted 1,000 new rows into pet profiles at some point in time. And then on the other side, we can verify that, of course, but hold your horses on that. We're going to show you how to push this information into DataHub first, and I'm going to pass it over to Tamás to talk about how to do that.
Yeah, let me show you how you can apply this technique to your Airflow pipeline. So for the simplicity, these two DAG will have only one task for each. So even the Snowflake loader and the email sender one, and as well for the simplicity, for both tasks will be a simple bash operator, some kind of daemon bash operator. So for this task, which will be the profilers load, we define inlets and outlets, which is provided by the Airflow lineage API. And we define data sets, like input data sets, which will be here in this case on S3 location, where we load data, which will be the outlet, into Snowflake. And on success, we want to send out operational metadata. And how you send in this operational metadata is pretty easy. We have we basically working on this new API. So first you have to create a DataHub connection, and then you create this operational reporter, and basically you go through all of the outlets and send out operational metadata to DataHub. In this example, we are sending out the operational the earn of the data sets, which we would like to send in operational metadata, and the type of operation, which in this case is an insert operation. Of course, you will be able to send out like other informations as well, like partitions or the number of other metadata or number of rows affected, and various other key values, key values, what you can imagine or what you want to send out.
Awesome. So once we've kind of posted that to DataHub, we can add a small snippet on the email sender side, which basically just verifies that that information has been reported. And you can do things like verify custom metadata. So as Tamás was alluding to, you can verify that a partition has landed even, or you can verify that the upstream job was a scheduled job versus a backfill job, that sort of thing. And now we'll just look at how you can do that verification.
Yeah, so to protect us from a premature pipeline start, we create for the email sender set up a DataHub operation circuit breaker sensor. It will be a sensor which will be in the beginning of your pipeline. It will be going to check if operational metadata exists, and if and the pipeline continues if there is. So to create it is very easy. You just create a DataHub operational circuit breaker sensor. You basically pass in a DataHub connection and as well a list of earns, which data set you want to check operational metadata. And also you can set a time delta, which is the time frame where you accept operational metadata. In this case, it's like a 12-hour, because you can imagine you don't want to start your pipeline if you only have data which was created like 2 days ago. This makes sure that your pipeline won't start in this case.
Yep.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, so this is now a sensor, but we are going to provide other Airflow primitives like operator. And also we, under the hood, the operator and the sensor as well using a Python API. And you will be able to use that as well. So in this way, you can basically integrate not just for Airflow, but any other systems as well.
Awesome. And I think we're just going to talk through the demo because we're short on time, but you can imagine you push this data and then you run the downstream and it works or it fails depending on the presence of the pushed metadata. Okay, so things are running well, but a few months later, we actually have another problem in our pipeline. And in this case, the timestamp column, which we're depending on, has changed from being in seconds to milliseconds because of an upstream change in the online service. Again, you can imagine this is a problem for our email sender job because we're doing a filtering on that timestamp column, and we're actually filtering for profiles that were, recently updated. And so what happens is no emails are sent because now it's in milliseconds, it was in seconds, so our assumptions are broken. Okay, so we've solved the time problem with the operations, but in this case, it's really a correctness problem. It's something about the data itself. And this is where our second abstraction comes in, which is called DataHub assertions. Some of you may already be familiar or even using assertions with Great Expectations already. But the assertions integration basically allows you to run some validation at the end of the producer job, push those validations into DataHub. So examples are, things about the columns, and then again, verify that before the email sender runs. And then we can just zoom through this piece. The first step is defining assertions in something like Great Expectations. In the future, we'll probably support other things like DQ or DBT tests. Once those assertions are run, we push those into DataHub. And of course, some of you may be familiar with this screen already on the right side where we surface the results. And then the final step here is, again, asking DataHub, hey, are my upstream's assertions passing? And are there results that are recent that I should be able to trust? Tamás, you want to talk about this part again?
Yeah, so here in this example for the email sender, we will introduce a DataHub assertion circuit breaker operator. So as you can see, we provide operators as well. Then basically setting up it's quite similar like how it was like the operator, operational circuit breaker. Basically, you just create a DataHub assertion circuit breaker operator. You just specify DataHub connection, list of earns, and there is an option which is called like verify after last update, which basically will get the latest operational metadata, and it will check if you have assertion after the latest operation, because we don't want to basically accept assertion which was created before the last update, because most probably it's an outdated data quality check.
All right, so one more demo we're gonna skip. So here we have a few abstractions that help us to work up this pyramid. So we have DataHub operations, which maybe helps towards the availability and timeliness side. And then we have DataHub assertions, which will help more on the correctness aspect of things. I think we're doing an okay job on the through time aspect of reliability, but one thing we haven't really touched on is how to actually do this at scale. So we've instrumented, one DAG, but how do you handle hundreds or thousands of DAGs in your ecosystem? And we started thinking about this and started to think about if there was another solution where we could centralize our control as a central data platform engineering team, and then have distributed enforcement of some policies that we'd like to set about when a pipeline should continue or when a pipeline should be broken. And some key characteristics we were thinking about for a solution here is really, like I mentioned, decoupling that kind of rules definition from the enforcement, which is the circuit breaking in this case. Flexibility, so being able to evolve our rules and our policies of what a good data ecosystem looks like over time. configurability, so being able to sort of slice and dice for only the most important assets or most important pipelines in our ecosystem, so that we can avoid a lot of the noise. Usability, so being able to integrate with all of our DAGs, all of our Airflow pipelines by default without having to kind of go in and instrument them one by one. And what we came up with is a vision for a new feature set, which I think Shirshanka mentioned earlier, which is called Metadata Tests or DataHub Tests. And the vision for this feature is really that a data platform team can come into DataHub and they can define or declare a policy inside of DataHub, saying, for example, all tier 1 data sets should have passing assertions. And then 2, we can instrument all of our DAGs to, again, do this circuit breaking check against DataHub before running. And so what this allows us to do is kind of get out of the mode of kind of redefining or reintegrating every single DAG into this, this DataHub ecosystem one by one. And so how this will work is basically 2 steps. First step is defining a DataHub test. And here's what the definition language will initially look like. It's going to be a YAML file. And there's 2 key blocks I want you to look at. The first is the on block. And that basically filters down the different entities in your metadata graph. So for example, we want to apply a test to all data sets that are tagged with tier 1. And so that's what we're doing in this on block. And the second block is the rules block. In this case, I'm going to run a test that says that the ownership count for these data sets must be greater than 3 because they're maybe important. So that's kind of the first step, is the test definition. Second step is DataHub runs these tests continuously over time on your graph as the metadata changes. And we surface the results of these tests in real time on the entity pages to which they've been applied. So here's what that would look like on the right side. All right, that's great. But again, how do you integrate this seamlessly into your Airflow environment? Tamás, one more time, can you walk us through this one?
Yeah. So as Joe mentioned, metadata test validation, you don't want to let your DAG owners to basically control if they want to enable or disable it, but you want to make sure that it will run for all the tasks in all your DAGs. And actually there is one way to do that in Airflow, which called like cluster policies. If you are not familiar with what cluster policy is, basically you can create policies which will do that what I mentioned. So basically will be applied to all of the task in all your DAGs. And we are going to create here a task policy, which basically will get all the tasks, and basically you can mutate all of your tasks with this policy. In this case, we are going to add a pre-execution method to all of your tasks, where basically we are going to run a metadata test circuit breaker. Setting it up, it's pretty easy. Here you will see we are going to use the Python API. You just set up a DataHub connection and then create a metadata test circuit breaker. And then we are getting all the inlets, so the input data sets for your task. And basically we just run the circuit breaker for all of the data sets. And if any data set has a failing test, basically we fail your task. And the cool thing is that in this is that you don't have to change any of your text or any of your tasks. It will get applied automatically.
Awesome. All right, one more demo we're going to skip. At this point, you're realizing that I am not good at the lightning portion of the talks, mostly just talking. So as we're moving up this pyramid, what we're kind of trying to see here or tell a story about is really preventative metadata. So it's using DataHub's toolkit, including operations, assertions, and now tests to proactively orchestrate your pipelines. And the availability for what we've talked about today, we'll cover briefly. The report operations API, which Tamás was talking about, will come in v0836. I think that's the next one, which is this Friday. The circuit breaker APIs will come in the next release, which is June 10th, I believe. That's going to include the operation circuit breaker you saw, the assertion circuit breaker, the test circuit breaker, and then deep integration with Airflow. So supporting pushing this metadata from sensors or from your operators. And then the test APIs will be coming a little bit later as well in V0837, June 10th. All right, we're going to go through these one more time for fun. All right, and a summary of what we talked about in the talk. Data quality can be thought of as availability, timeliness, and correctness. Data reliability can be thought of as data quality over time. And we presented a new approach to build data pipelines for data reliability, or with data reliability in mind, using metadata-driven orchestration. And finally, we talked about a few different tools in the DataHub toolkit, which can help you to start building these pipelines today. Operations, assertions, and tests. All right, and that's the end of our talk. Sorry, Maggie, we went over quite a bit.
Thank you much, guys. I'm super excited about this. I don't know how you could have gone through it any more quickly than you did. So, you know,
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to post this in announcements as well, but I did, since we do have a lot of folks that have stuck around, don't want to leave you hanging with the outcomes of Metadata Day Hackathon community favorite. Please to wait, can you see the right screen?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Pleased to announce that single click data exploration in DataHub won with 33 votes. This was super close, 33 votes. Just below that, glossary terms in glossary as code in schemas with 27 votes, and then auto annotating DataHub entities with 26 votes. So super, super close there, but congrats to Dane, Edward, and Levi. Dane, I believe you're still on the call. Congrats to you and team. We will be announcing this in DataHub Slack and other channels as well, but mostly just want to say thanks, folks. As always, these sessions are the highlight of my entire month. I appreciate everybody's time and attention, and we will see you on the internet, everybody. Have a great afternoon, evening, day, whatever it is where you are. Bye-bye.